All right, good morning. Welcome to Business Lens on Rapid TV. And I am Faith Dafford Joseph. Today, per usual, we'll take a look at major headlines in the world of business, finance, and the economy. Now, we are going to be starting with the oil and gas sector. Okay, on this particular headline, we have the NMDPR releasing new figures for us. So let's talk about these new figures on fuel consumption in Nigeria. NMDPR released these new figures detailing how much fuel Nigerians consume monthly. And the Director of Public Affairs, NMDPRA, George Ene-Ita, has confirmed this in a report on Wednesday that daily fuel consumption had averaged 48 million litres, correcting the earlier reports that suggested a lower figure of 38.94 million litres. Now, this is very interesting because when we had subsidy being paid, we had no real figures to back that up. Speculations had pushed consumptions to as high as over 100 million litres a day sometimes. And I remember that even the former Minister for Petroleum had said he couldn't really ascertain how much petrol Nigerians consumed. Also, Nigeria's average daily crude oil production rose to 1.507 million barrels per day in July 2025, surpassing the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries target for the second month in a row. Our target is 1.5 million barrels per day. Anyway, this update was contained in OPEC's latest monthly oil market report that was released on Tuesday. And this also reviewed Nigeria's drilling performance. And this is very good news for us because now we produce more, which would result in more revenue for Nigeria. We're able to take care of, hopefully, our forward payments and also have enough local consumption as well as be able to sell to get revenue. Now, let's still stay with the oil and gas sector, where marketers are now calling on the NNPCG CEO to either fix the Port Harcourt refinery or resign. Recall that earlier in May 2025, we had the Port Harcourt refinery shut down for maintenance for a period of 30 days. Now, the Eastern Zonal Secretary of IPMAN, Comrade Emmanuel Imnimigba, he had expressed concerns about the delayed rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery, which he says is a project worth over $1.5 billion. And he believes it is being handled unprofessionally. He said the refinery shutdown has resulted in thousands of job losses affecting tanker drivers, NUPENG members, Petron staff, IPMAN workers, and host community members. This is very interesting also because we know that a lot of the times when you have these groups, it is always about, for them, what their members stand to lose and all of that. So quoting him, he said that the GCEO is unable to fix the Port Harcourt refinery or demonstrate commitment to its rehabilitation. Stakeholders in those communities will have no option but to call on President Tinubu to consider replacing him. Now, let me bring you back to the report that the NNPC had halted operations to allow for checks on equipment and initial fears of a negative effect on petrol supply. And the stoppage of operations came 6 months after November 26, 2024, when it was reported that the $1.5 billion rehabilitation was completed. Okay, let's get back to some news on monetary policy tightening. Nairametrics is reporting that a lot of big corporates are grappling with high interest rates on borrowing. This is definitely no surprise. The CBN has refused to lower interest rate, instead deciding to hold it at the last MPC meeting at 27.5%. Now, this has also contributed to a year of elevated borrowing costs, stubborn inflation, and tighter monetary policy, turning debt servicing into one of the most punishing line items on corporate income statements. The CBN, of course, is insisting on aggressive tightening campaign, driving MMPR to 27.5%, and decided to hold it at the last MPC meeting in July. Borrowing costs, of course, has skyrocketed. Corporates are paying much more for less debt. What we also know is that the manufacturing industry, they've called on the CBN to reduce interest rates so that local companies are able to borrow for lesser costs. But the CBN is saying, well, we're trying to fight inflation, and so they've kept the MPR at this very, very high rate. And we do not know if the next MPC meeting will see a lowering of that, because also we realize that we need hot money. Okay, hot money means that if interest rates are high, we get more FPIs, portfolio investments flow in. And of course, we probably are able to show up, our foreign exchange reserve and maybe be able to defend the Naira just a little more. Okay, so there's still more headlines to look at. So let me take you on to this last one that we're going to be talking about today, and that is the 4% FOB levy by the Nigerian Customs. That is the free on board levy. Have you heard about it? Let me break that down for you very quickly. This has, of course, caused a lot of conversation so far. This levy was initially introduced in February 2025, and it was now suspended due to public outcry. However, you had stakeholder consultations and a directive from the House of Representatives Committee on Customs, and the levy has now been reintroduced. This new levy is supposed to replace the 1% Comprehensive Import Supervision Scheme, that's the CISS, and is also calculated based on the value of imported goods, including costs and transportation expenses up to the port of loading. What we know, the federal government passed the FOB policy into law in April 2023 as part of the Customs Service Act 2023, and it replaced a separate 1% comprehensive import supervision scheme and the 7% collection fees by unifying levies. That's what Customs explained. And they said that this 4% FOB, also known as Financial Customs Service Operation, is essential for the Nigerian Customs Service operation and stakeholder interactions. Customs attempted to implement this policy in February. You had many clearing and forwarding agents complaining about how it would affect their businesses, and it was subsequently suspended to allow for stakeholder interaction. This 4% FOB levy, like I said earlier, is supposed to consolidate other levies. In fact, the Comptroller General of Customs, Adewale Adeniyi, had in July, during a town hall meeting with stakeholders on the Bodogu clearance system, hinted of the replacement of the 1% levy with the 4% FOB, and that the 7% surcharge would also be scrapped. Importers, though, are claiming that the 7% surcharge still features prominently on the customs portal as against the premise of scrapping it, saying the 7% surcharge on every import ought to have been scrapped along with the 1% comprehensive report supervision scheme. Experts have also warned that manufacturers who depend on imported materials will feel it too. If clearing costs increase, production slows down, prices rise, and the triple effect will be felt across the economy. Prices of imported goods such as vehicles and spare parts are also expected to surge as the Nigerian Customs Service has officially commenced the collection of this new free on-board levy on all imports. In fact, car dealers already grappling with high import duties and a volatile naira are expected to be among the worst hit. For instance, a vehicle that was valued at about 20 million naira, that's including transportation to the port, will now attract an additional 800,000 naira in FOB levy. That is up from 200,000 naira previously charged under the CISS framework. And this is in addition, get it, to 35% duty, 10% levy, and VAT already paid on imported vehicles. So the fear now is, will Nigerians still be able to afford cars after this is implemented? I have seen different conversations going back and forth about this, asking whether you're going to have the middle class able to actually buy cars after this is implemented. Bringing cars into the country is one of the most expensive things to do right now. So with this FOB levy, will this change? At the end of the day, it's up to the Customs Service to tell us whether they are going to be scrapping this or the 7% and 1% levy and consolidating everything under this 4% FOB. That way, maybe there will be some reprieve, especially for car dealers, because like I said, this is going to be felt across the entire economy, whether you're bringing in spare parts or you're bringing in other things to help with manufacturing. This will be felt across the entire economy, especially, of course, with high exchange rate and all of those things. Anyway, those are the headlines for today. But on the other side of this, I'm going to be turning to a customer service expert. And we're going to be discussing customer service experience in Nigeria. And we're discussing this topic looking at it from the last debacle, what happened with Ibom Air and a passenger, as well as what happened with Fuji music icon Kwam One. So the question is, are customers protected? And when is the customer to blame exactly? So stay with us. This is Business Lens on Rapid TV.
Were
Welcome back. It's still the Business Lens on Rapid TV, and we have been talking about what's going on in the world of business, the economy, and finance. But now it's time to get to our conversation for the day. And I did tell you earlier that we will be talking about customer service experience in Nigeria, especially, and we're looking at it off the case of this Ibom Air debacle. And, well, I'm not just Ibom Air, because the first one was ValueJet, right, with Fuji music icon Kwam1. And he rendered a heartfelt apology and things like that. And he had a 6-month ban that has now been shortened to 1 month. And he also has now been appointed by FAN as an ambassador for airport security. That's very interesting. I'm wondering if Comfort Emerson is going to be appointed as anything. She was one involved in the Ibom Air debacle. And there were different videos that were floating around, whether it was from her perspective or from the airline's perspective. In fact, she was actually arrested once they got off the plane, and there was a lifetime flying ban placed on her, by the federal government and other airlines. But it has now been lifted. Ibom Air is said to have, also withdrawn their case against her, but it brings into question the customer service system in Nigeria, because all of this started with a hostess and her saying, put off your phone, flight rules, and so you're saying no. And at the end of the day, she is a customer. But at the end, is a customer always right? And did she get the kind of treatment that she should get as a customer? From a Nigerian business. So that's what we get to talk about today. And I have to discuss this with me, Cynthia Yankere. She's a lawyer, a business transformation consultant, and a certified customer experience professional. I simply just call her customer service expert because she knows her onions where this is concerned. Welcome. Good to have you.
Hi, Faith. So nice to have you and be here and
discuss
you
this
again.
Okay, so let's start with I don't know if you followed the story. I mean, there were videos everywhere, there were pictures, and everybody had their take. Just as normal Nigerian conversation happens, but let's talk about customer service in Nigeria, right? Because one of the things that also highlighted was the role of a customer for a Nigerian business and how a customer is actually also viewed. This is your expertise. So let's talk about customer service in Nigeria. Do you think that over time, it has improved? Where does the customer's right coming, and where does the business owner's right coming?
Thank you very much, Faith. The conversation that has ensued from ValueJet, Ibom Air, and before that there were the others, really brought to the fore the gap we have in customer service experience in Nigeria. I'm happy that you were very careful to put experience behind the customer service, because a lot of people who own businesses, who drive businesses, and who participate in businesses focus on just the service aspect of the business and not the experience end to end. Customer service in Nigeria is growing. We're not there yet.
Okay.
We're a very long way away. And it's sad because other clients have moved on from customer service to customer experience. And I'll tell you why, because there is a difference between customer service and customer experience.
Let's break it down.
So customer service is delivering service within a business to a customer, a stakeholder, a partner, a client. As the stakeholder needs your service, product, or expertise. Customer experience, on the other hand, is looking at the end-to-end experience and the perception, the stakeholder. I use stakeholder loosely, and I'm going to explain why I'm using stakeholder rather than customer. End-to-end perception of that stakeholder, of your services to them or your products, from them during the course of interactions. And when I say during the course of interaction, it starts from, for example, in the airline industry, it starts from when I sit on my bed in the room and say, I want to book a flight. Is it easy to navigate your website? When I have a problem, Can I call and get somebody to say, oh, I'm very sorry that you had this challenge. This is what happened. When I get to the airport, when I'm told that my flight is delayed and cancelled, how? It's not just in the taking the customer from point A to point B. In this case, and you permit me to use the airline industry as our case study in this case. I mean, they are hot on our take this morning.
Exactly.
You know, and it is every single step of the way, and that is why experience has transcended the conversation of customer service. But here we're still struggling to just deliver the basic, hi, good morning, welcome to wherever I work, and this is the service, and bye, see you next time. We still are struggling with those little concepts. You know, you go to the store and even the teller rep is so rude, and she's telling you, I don't have network on my POS. Do you have cash? Go to the ATM outside. Go and get POS. You go to the filling station, and the filling station attendant tells you, oh, I don't have cash. Use POS. I got to a filling station once in Nigeria, and I was sent to a POS operator within the filling station, sort of being managed by the same filling station, asked to pay for my fuel.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, even in just delivering the basic services, there is still a lot to be done. So even talking about customer experience, that the whole world, and I say that very confidently, other countries, Dubai, Ghana, you know, even South Africa, the countries of the world, and even in Africa, have already gravitated towards, is a problem in Nigeria, because we are not yet talking about the experience, and that's why we had what we had here. You can't walk except you learn how to crawl. You can't crawl. I mean, you can't fly except you learn how to walk. And that's what's happening. So if we don't get customer service right, we will always struggle with the customer's experience, because to business operators, just the letting you use the service to them is all that there is, but there is so much more. So you ask a business operator or a service provider, why did this happen? But have you not already gotten the book? Have you not already gone to Lagos? Have you not already come on the flight? Have you not already bought the...
Does it come from the fact that you have a lot of business owners actually treating Nigerians like they're offering you a privilege when you're paying for a service? Because at the end of the day, you're paying for this. You're supposed the mantra is supposed to be the customer is king. But when it is in the Nigerian climb, it doesn't reflect, because what you see most of the time is that they see it as a privilege that, you know, they're actually offering you a service that you are paying for.
Now, that is again why the experience is so important, because the experience puts you in a space where you are mindful of both the exigencies within and without your control. Therefore, you are going a step further to ensure the customer is treated like king, like you said. And you know, people say now that customer is no more king, customer is tyrant. Because I mean, customer has so many other options. You go on Instagram, what I can get the next door, somebody can bring to me from Timbuktu on my bed. So the truth is, the idea that all there is to delivering service is sitting on a desk and delivering the service and giving you the service is one of the factors that limits business owners and service providers with the understanding that you're not doing the customer a favor, because to them, if they've delivered the service, they have done the work.
Now let me bring you to the point of saying that if you look at you know, numbers that the NBS has churned out in recent times, talking about, you know, the places or the sectors of the economy that have grown. In fact, if you look at this latest, you know, GDP rebasing, you'll see that the services sector is coming up, you know, big time. So if the service sector is coming up, what it also means is that we need to start doing more when it comes to customer experience or customer service. But that seems to have been left behind. It's also because we do not have, I mean, we have the Federal, you know, Competition and Consumer Protection Agency. Are they doing what they're supposed to do when it comes to protecting the consumer or the customer, knowing that we are starting to operate a very large service you know, industry where our economy is concerned?
I'm very happy that we started talking about the different rights that customers and consumers have. And it's interesting to note that with the FCCPC, the Federal Consumer Protection Commission, the focus is on competition and also on ensuring that there is no exploitation of the customer or the consumer. So again, you see why I use the word stakeholder very deliberately, because there is now the conversation around, is it the consumer, is it the customer, is it the client? Who really should be protected? That needs to, I think, in my opinion, that needs to be elaborated on.
Can we look at how it translates? You know, do you go from a client to a customer and then a consumer, or how is the progression?
So these different individuals, or should I say classes of service users, are similar in the sense that they are receiving service and they are paying for it, like you said, and they deserve to be treated right. But there is a difference in what type of service. So for the consumer, you are either getting a product or you're buying, or it is sometimes a one-off relationship. So I go into a store, I buy something, I'm a consumer of whatever I bought. I buy from FMCGs, I'm a consumer. A client sometimes, or a client most times, is that service user that is getting expertise from you. Either it is maybe a consultancy, whether it is a law firm. So there is a more elongated responsibility and relationship with both parties. So you find out that there is a bit more respect and more attention given to that class of customer. Then you have the customers who may not have that personal relationship with you as a business provider, but probably come consistently, like a bank.
Like a returning...
Yes, like a returning customer, like a bank, or even a store that, a neighborhood store that I'm always going to. So there are differences in what kind of service they receive, but the rights should be the same. And I believe that we need laws that encompass all of them, because when we focus on only one area, there are gaps in the other areas. Now, even the health sector has consumers. Health consumers are patients, right? Luckily, we have our patient bill of rights, but you have to know your rights to enforce them.
Exactly.
So the conversation around, why is it that the Nigerian service provider acts like they're doing you a favor? I think it still stems from a flow of how governance...
So it's a cultural thing?
A cultural thing. How governance permeates the whole society, and how respect for individuals permeates the whole society. When people talk customer experience and I say stakeholder experience, it's because I believe that it's a two-way thing. You're not just being respectful to your customer, consumer, client, patient. You are being respectful to your employees, who are internal customers of your organization.
Okay, so that is another conversation, because how many employees actually feel like internal customers?
Fantastic. So it's a governance. So the culture needs to change for laws to now guide how, because...
Which comes first, the laws or the culture?
I think the laws, if you ask me, because I believe that a lot rises and falls on leadership, and the tone is set from the top and it flows down. And because we are moving, should I say moving engine, so we are not even an organization, we're a society that already is in operation, and we have to sit back and say, who takes responsibility? I could, as an expert and a combination of maybe a consortium of fellow experts, come and say, okay, we need a policy that protects the consumer, the customer in a more
robust
way. But that's as much as I can do, because we do have lawmakers who make and translate those policies to laws. We do have an executive who can give orders that those policies will be enforced through. So the truth is, it has to start with, of course, concerned citizens like us having these kind of conversations we're having, but also ultimately ending up with that decisive decision by the leaders of our country. Because the truth is, what happened with these airlines was just a flow of a consistent abuse of customer experience, employee experience, and just general badly behaved attitudes and characters that we have around. Now, when we talk about customer experience, we must also understand that the customer has.
We're going to come to that, you know. But I'm just thinking about what you said about you know, airlines. I have been at the airports before where flights were cancelled without explanations. In fact, there was, I think the last time I was at airports, this particular airline just cancelled the flights. They just told, sorry, you know, we're not flying. And it became an issue because people were now at the counter shouting, threatening to break down everything. But at the end of the day, all they got was sorry. And that was the end. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're putting people through. People have exams, they have weddings, they have family issues, they have
appointments.
And all you're doing is saying them, sorry. Anyway, we're going to go on a very short break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation. Look at the other side of it, the customer's responsibility as well, because is the customer always right? I have been talking with Cynthia Ayikere. She is a customer, let me get it right, a certified customer experience professional, and we are going to continue this conversation on the other side of the hour. So stay with us. It's still Business Lens on Rapid TV. All right, still Business Lens on Rapid TV, and we have been talking about customer service experience in Nigeria so far, using as case study the debacle with Ibom Air and Comfort in Masin. Okay, so I have been talking with Cynthia Ayikere, who is a certified customer experience professional, and we're looking at, you know, when is the customer king in Nigeria, right? And on the other side of this, we also want to look at the responsibility of the customer. When is the customer to blame exactly? Because a lot of the times talk about the rights of the customer, but businesses also have rights, and sometimes you can have very difficult client or customers. How do you deal with that? Is the customer still right in all cases?
Okay, thank you very much. The conversation around the customer being right is something that I think we had busted that theory ages and years ago. The customer is not always right.
Okay.
Saying that as a professional in this space, well, the customer should always be treated right.
That's interesting.
The customer is not always right, but the customer should always be treated right. Why do I say this? A business provider or a service provider understands the scope of their business, understands the ambit and the policies that guide their business, and are in a superior position over customers when it comes to knowledge about the service they deliver. What this means is that we put customers at a sort of at a position whereby we understand the limitations they have concerning the policies, the procedures, and it could, of course, trigger backlash. It's like a parent and a child. You tell a child, oh, you can't run into the streets because the street is busy. You have superior knowledge because you've seen things happen, and this child is 2 years old who has never seen an accident, who doesn't know what is going on, and it's like, and just goes, and hey, something happens. So it's now the responsibility on the parent to say, this is the consequence of this. Again, we talked about experience being not just customer experience, but employee experience. When your employee is treated well, and treated well doesn't just mean perks and, you know, and all those motivational, high salaries, you know, factors. It's also about the training you give your employees. And that's why you see the best businesses train their employees, and they come out and they are professionals through and through. When you train an employee to understand customer psychology, and that's something that I will propose to the aviation sector. You know, we do a lot around training our employees to understand how to use systems,
Yes.
how to fly the plane, you know, the various controls or policies or laws around our businesses, if it's banking, but we don't train our employees on how to manage relationships, how to communicate, how to ensure that when you have tense scenarios, when you have conflicts, how do you manage them? Even when you do, how do you evaluate what you've done? Because we do a lot of trainings in Nigeria, in many organizations. Or people fly. You come back and you have no clue what you have.
And then there are team building activities, and then afterwards they're like, okay.
Or they take the flights, the money that you used to fly and go take, you know, these courses. You come back and how is it translated? Do you check to see that you've done this? You tried, you test it out. I think that's what is lacking, and that's why we don't know that the customer should always be treated right. I'm a lawyer, so permit me to come into how we must still treat customers right. In Nigeria today, when a criminal is arrested, not a criminal, I shouldn't say that I'm a lawyer. When somebody is accused of a crime and is arrested, the law says you are not guilty until
yes.
proven. So you are innocent until proven guilty. And that's why the law allows for 1 million guilty people to go scot-free than one innocent person to be incarcerated. But that's not what we have. We first incarcerate, then we now decide.
And then we parade them around like they're criminals
and
already.
People have been in incarceration for years. And I'm just trying to just show you what the society's culture around human dignity is. And if you look at section 34(1)(a) of the Constitution, 99 Constitution of Nigeria, everyone has a right to dignity. Everyone has a right to dignity. Yes, there may be instances where your other rights, right to life, right to freedom of speech,
association, freedom of speech, and things like
that. Dignity is holistic.
Let's talk about the fact that let's talk about, you know, what happened with Comfort, right? So there was that thing of saying that, well, you know, she was provocative, she was insultive, she was this, she was that. But then you also saw the response of, you know, the airline operators. You saw the response of the hostess. You saw, you know, somebody's cloth being torn apart. You see insults flying from one part to the other. You're a prostitute, you're this, you're that. At the end of the day, they're saying, well, she triggered it, so we responded. Are you supposed to respond to the way you're being triggered?
If a baby spits on your shoulder, what do? A baby has no clue that this is wrong. That's why you can't say the customer is not always right, so I don't have to treat the customer right. Because
is that infantilizing the customer, though?
It's not necessarily, but from the point of superiority of your professional space, your sector, your understanding of the various incidences that could occur. Yes, we may never see, nobody has ever seen anyone come and stand in front of a plane. I haven't. Maybe during movies when you're stalking your loved one.
That happened, right?
But it happened, so it now becomes new precedent for address. But what you are actually just supposed to understand is a customer can misbehave. What do you do when the customer misbehaves? You have to be professional. That's why I say from a professional standpoint, because we all talk about it. In your industry, a professional at media, in my industry, a professional at customer experience, there is a high standard expected of me compared to who is just passing by and using the service that I provide. For Comfort's case, I do not condone the irrationality and her assault. But even when you arrest a criminal, you read them, or you arrest someone, you arrest an accused person. I'm beginning to come on with the Nigerian mentality and mindset. You have to read them rights to tell them you're being arrested.
And this is why.
And this is why. And you shall be, you don't have to say anything, but you shall, if you don't have somebody who can, maybe defend you, you have a right to an attorney or lawyer,
a public defender. And
it just tells you about how important it is to ensure that even whilst during an arrest, dignity should be upheld. My question is, how do you wait for a passenger to be dragged on the floor. I know she was not right in any way by hitting, but how do you wait for her to be dragged? And how do you allow her privates to be exposed? So we just need to understand that if we have the mentality that, not infantilizing the customer, but if we have the mentality that customers may sometimes not do the right thing, customers may sometimes be limited in their understanding of how to behave because of the different experiences we all have. You as a professional comes from a different mindset to ensure that you treat the situation with utmost professionalism.
I mean, I would also say this as we start to wrap up, that all of this back and forth, I haven't also seen this particular airline tender an apology to their customers that, oh, sorry, whatever it is that she did, we didn't have a right to behave like this. We have not seen any sort of disciplinary action against, the staff that did this to her, negating the fact that they were also wrong in the delivery of their service to their customers. And I mean, it is also a case of reputation. I mean, do businesses in Nigeria actually value their reputation, or they think, like I said, they're doing you a favor?
Culture, they say, eat strategy for breakfast. If you are not culturally aware of the importance of managing relationships, communication, and customers, whatever strategy, reputation, and business, growth that you're aiming for will be swallowed in by that culture. And I think that's what it has really shown us, that we have a very poor culture. And you see, because we condone it in one sector and in one business and organization, we give ourselves the leverage to do the same. And therefore, we have a vicious cycle of terrible service experience in Nigeria.
All around. I hope that changes soon. But thank you so much, for coming on the show today. It's always great, to have conversations with you. Okay, I was speaking with Cynthia Ukere. I mean, you can check her out. She is definitely somebody who knows the stuff where customer experience is concerned in Nigeria. My name is Faith Dafa-Joseph. This is the end for the Business Lens for today, but we'll do this again next week, Monday. On the other side of the hour, we have the rapid news coming up as we keep you informed about everything going on around you.